Loki's finally showing us why he's been hiding his eyes, and yeah, those snake eyes are no joke, let me tell you that. In this chapter, we also learn about his mysterious mother, the ancient prophecies that she's passed down, and a truly shocking truth that Elbaf's fate might be directly tied to the powers that Loki was never supposed to unlock. And on top of all of that, we see more of Harold's life and a very surprising connection to Monkey D. Dragon and his possible second child, yes, that we never saw coming. But I want to start with what might just be the wildest visual reveal that we've had in quite a while, which really says something at this point, which are Loki's snake eyes. I mean, like, just look at these things. And this combined with the whole baby vibe here and the soul-crushing, desperate climb up the tree, it's honestly a really creepy effect, which is probably exactly what Oda was going for here. But you see, this wasn't just a shocking design choice, this is Oda showing us that Loki most likely has some natural powers not related to his devil fruit or anything, but instead something that he always had right from his birth. And if you're not sure what I mean, here's how I'm kind of seeing it all at this point. Because we can safely assume that Loki, yes, has a devil fruit power due to him, being chained up with sea prison stone shackles, but his unique eyes here explain something else that this arc has been implying for quite a while. The fact that Loki has some sort of secret latent powers directly related to his eyes. Now, this just has to be the case, right? Because for me, there's just no way that Oda just drew him with these eyes just as a cool design choice. There's more to this. So what exactly is this mysterious eye power? And if we wanted to look for a very obvious answer, it could be that it's some crazy kind of natural observation haki, potentially even future side, or kind of like Fujitora, maybe Loki can just naturally sense the world around him with a sort of ultra instinct, mega precise awareness, even while being blindfolded. Maybe it's something crazy like Gojo's 6 eyes from JJK, where he can still see through the blindfolds, but they kind of help limit the amount of information that he's kind of having to process because they allow him to see much more of the world around him. Either one of these answers could explain how he's been moving so confidently with his eyes being completely covered for basically, as far as we can tell, his entire life. But if you've been paying attention, you might have started to wonder, just like I have, if there is actually something really bad and terrible about his eyes too. Because come on, there has gotta be a reason that he was the one who chose to keep them bandaged for basically since he was a kid. I mean, we've seen him now in multiple flashbacks at different stages of his childhood, and every single time, except as a baby, he already has had the bandages on him. Like right here when he's a kid talking to rocks, and even in the previous chapters when he's walking into the castle. So I do hate to ask this, but did someone hurt his eyes? Like poke them out or something? That would be a very terrifying option, but it's not necessarily the only one to consider here, luckily, because this one kind of spooks me out. I mean, for starters, he doesn't really seem to be too bothered by the bandages, so it's kind of clear that he either believes that they are necessary or that he has a very good reason to keep his eyes covered. So I kind of wonder if Loki actually brings disaster when his eyes might be uncovered. Maybe his two baubles are so powerful that they just bring bad things, and they really happen when he looks at stuff and thinks about stuff. We do see that his mom got sick pretty much right away, right after he was born, so that could be an option to consider here. And for all that we know, there could be some kind of power or curse tied to the eyes that makes people fear what might happen if he reveals them. Or a completely different option is that maybe Loki himself is just ashamed of the eyes because everyone else thinks that that's what makes him cursed. That kind of reminds me of how Katakuri kept his mouth covered, right, for most of his life because people thought his mouth was disgusting and they thought he was a monster, so that could be an interesting parallel. Now, okay, someone's calling. What? Where are you? Hey, hi, hello, it's me, the Fleet Admiral. I just got called back to Marijo. As you can see, I'm sitting at my desk, but boy, does abyss travel get me hungry, let me tell you. The good news is, I just got my monthly box from Tokyo Treat. Wait. Before you go on, can you please tell me a little bit more about the abyss here? Because I've been trying to make some theories about that recently, and nope, let me tell you about this instead. This month, Tokyo Treat is taking me on a Harajuku snack adventure, huh? With awesome treats like salted lemon pretzel sticks, fruitsy fizz gummies, a mega marshmallow stick, garlic potato chips, and happy Harajuku choco cake. I mean, come on, Manu, look at these fun and colorful snacks. They totally remind me of the trendy, vibrant streets of Harajuku when I went there. And who can forget the monthly rare Kit Kat flavor, because this time it's cookies and cream. The best way to start a war. Now, let me tell you, as soon as I finish these things, I'm sure I'll have enough energy to confront Dragon and the Revolutionary Army, but not a second earlier. Just a very quick question. Is Shanks there by any chance right there right now with you in the Holy Land, or is it just a Revolutionary Army? Then look, don't care. I'm reading the cultural booklet right now that comes with every box. I gotta check my allergies, but also, you know, some fun food facts and stash it somewhere quick, because Emo was not lying when they said the Holy Land was on fire right now. Holy smoke. Admiral? Admiral, are you okay? Wow, it does even have all the allergy information I was looking for. That's great. And you too can enjoy the delicious flavors of Japan, Manu, from the comfort of your own home, wherever you are, because Tokyo Treat has worldwide shipping. Just use the link and the promo code in the description for an exclusive deal, and look forward to some seriously awesome snacks. I'm gonna devour this marshmallow. It's gonna give me so much power. So thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. I'm gonna destroy Dragon with this marshmallow now. But back to the video, I guess. So yeah, if anything, Loki's eyes now actually being revealed for the first time in this chapter just kind of brings up more mysteries that we had before they were kept a secret, kind of in classic Oda fashion there. But since you're a sharp-eyed person, you probably also noticed that there's another layer here, one that gets even more interesting when you look at the mythological roots of his entire character. As you probably know at this point, we're deep into Elbaf. In Norse mythology, there is a serpent-like dragon called the Nidhogg who lives at the base of the world tree Yggdrasil, basically the underworld of the world tree, which should immediately make you think of Loki already, because that's exactly what happened to him, where he was quite literally thrown out into the underworld basically as soon as he came out of the womb. So that's already one crazy visual parallel between Loki and the Nidhogg, and Loki also has tattoos that look a lot like wings on his back, so yet another point for a connection to a flying creature. I don't know about you, but at this point I'm even wondering or considering if he might have ancient dragon blood in him or something like that. Like, I honestly would not be shocked at this point at all if this was the case. And to add even more fuel to this dragon theory, Loki reminds me a lot of two other royal children we've already met, the mermaid princess Shirahoshi and the new shogun of Wano, Momonosuke. Because I want you for a second to just think about each of these two characters. They're both the children of royalty, just like Loki here. They made connections with Luffy, just like Loki here, and their countries are all depicted in the Harley mural. And then just think about how Shirahoshi casually commands all the Sea Kings, Momo commands a massive land creature, so the natural next step could be for Loki to now command some massive flying creature. I don't know, maybe a massive bird, or even, I don't know, a literal dragon? I mean, I personally would be very down for that, and it would just make Loki even more relevant to the final war of the story. But it also brings us to another bigger question. If Loki's eyes really do line up with the Nidhogg myth, then that can give us some clues about his devil fruit power potentially as well, even though they are separate things. Now, at this point, we still don't have official confirmation whether Loki actually ate that so-called legendary fruit of Elbaf or not, and here's what we do know so far. When we first saw him chained up, he was held in sea prism stone shackles. And let's not fool around here, this pretty much guarantees that he has to have a devil fruit power. No reason to go through all of that trouble otherwise, unless they think he ate one but never saw him, but that would be kind of weird, right? And on top of that, Loki just flat out says that his powers are gonna be needed to help stop the Holy Knight, so please take them off. So whatever he's got there, it's not just for show. It's real, and it must be very, very dangerous. Now, you know, of course, that me and a lot of other people have done a ton of speculation on Loki's actual devil fruit power before, everything from mythical fire giant powers to illusion powers, and even a literal Fenrir fruit. But right now, I'm really leaning into the idea that Loki has a fruit inspired by Jormungandr. Now, if you don't remember that word, Jormungandr is another massive world serpent from Norse mythology. mythology. And the thing with Jormungandr compared to the Nidhogg is that its story is maybe even more similar to that of Loki's. It was born by Loki, then banished by the other gods because it was prophesied to destroy everything, and then yet destined to return in the final war, Ragnarok. And I would say that that would line up pretty well with everything that we've learned about Loki's journey so far. He was cast out of Elbaf, forced to wander the seas for a while, so imagine a fruit, something like a mythical zone model Jormungandr, a snake-like giant dragon hybrid with control over storms, poison, or I don't know, maybe even the flames of the underworld as we saw in the mural. I mean, that would also all connect perfectly with the Harley text and the flaming serpent that we see in it as well. Because on the mural, you can see the ancient giant who seems to be fighting with Joy Boy here, wearing the very same pattern that is on the serpent over on the other side of the mural. We've talked about that before as well. So there's already a deep connection between these two characters here. So I'm kind of really digging the idea of Loki having a Jormungandr fruit, or maybe Oda will just call it the mythical snake fruit model Hellflame serpent to match with what's written in the Harley text. I don't know. It does seem like he's kind of mixing the Nidhogg and the Jormungandr lore into Loki here. But this is where things now really get interesting. You see, if Loki did eat a devil fruit in the past, was it actually the legendary fruit of Elbaf? And there's a reason why I'm asking this, because that's what we've all kind of been expecting from basically the first time we heard about this legendary fruit. But in chapter 1152, we then saw someone sneaking in to steal that very fruit, and honestly, it didn't really look like Loki if you ask me. And if those scenes are happening at the same time, then how could Loki be in the throne room and also steal the fruit? It doesn't 100% line up, does it now? In fact, that moment here kind of throws everything into chaos, because if Loki's not the one who ate it, then who did? Or maybe more importantly, what was that legendary fruit in the first place? Well, you might know that there's been a theory in the community for a couple of weeks now that the fruit in that scene wasn't just some random Elbaf legendary mythical devil fruit, whatever, but the actual Nika fruit. The one that was stolen by the world government and then later taken back by Shanks. And I gotta say, that would honestly kind of fit in very nicely with what we know about Harold's death at this point. We figured that Emu and the world government were involved in this somehow, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to think that they sent an agent or some holy knight to steal the fruit from the giants. Because I mean, let's be real, we already know that they've been desperately trying to get their hands on that specific fruit for literal centuries, ever since the Void Century basically. But there's one more connection that I want to make here while we're still talking about the Nika fruit that is also very interesting, which is serpent dragon powers. And this one is heading straight towards a certain dragon themed emperor, because yes, we are gonna talk in this video about an old friend, Kaido. Because let's be real here, if there is some ancient prophecy about a serpent rising at the end of the world to support or even become the next sun god, then it would perfectly explain why Kaido did believe so strongly that he could be the one who was destined to be the next Joy Boy, or at the very least, be the one who stands beside him. Let's also not forget that Kaido literally has an attack called Ragnarok, Conqueror of the Three Worlds, and he and Big Mom also had a plan to conquer the world together. Plus, we learned that the Three Worlds are an actual thing that exists in the Harley describing the 3 ages of One Piece, so it really does seem like Oda was trying to hint that Kaido has some sort of connection to all of these interesting myths and mythologies and prophecies that we get here on Elbaf. Plus, Loki is also talking about his desire to bring an end to the world at this point, so I really think that there has to be something about serpents or dragons, dragon-like creatures, and you know, that being connected to bringing about the end of the world to then reshape it for the next era. Though I will say, I do wonder if Loki's part in this is what he himself thinks, or if it's just what everyone else says about him. But you see, there are also some more pretty shocking connections between Loki and Kaido that you might have never considered. First off, Kaido sailed with Rocks, the exact pirate crew that Loki said that he wanted to join so badly when he was a kid. And that's not just a random connection, they both heard this prophecy from Rocks, or maybe Rocks told it to Kaido after they visited Elbaf. And the next step here is to talk about one of the most complicated relationships in this entire arc, Loki and his father, Harold. And boy, it's time for some serious tea right here, because things just got a lot more complicated complicated than it already was with the entire introduction of both of Harold's lovers. And beneath all of the prophecy, the battle with the Holy Knights, and the giant-sized politics, I'm kind of really feeling like this arc comes down to a story about a father and his sons caught in a crazy drama that none of them actually really wanted. So let's try and really break this down once and for all. In the flashback that we get in this chapter, we actually get a really big drop. There was a prophecy that Loki would one day kill Harold. And what makes that hit even harder then is how that prophecy seems to have come true. Sort of, at least, I guess. Because even though it was the guard here who landed the first attack on Harold, it is Loki who is ultimately blamed for his death, at least publicly. So the people of Elbaf do believe that this prophecy actually happened and came to pass. But that, of course, brings us to another classic question. Was that prophecy actually real? Or was it one of those self-fulfilling ones? You know, the kind that only come true because everyone thinks it's true and is scared of it happening in the first place? You know, and that's why it comes true to begin with. I mean, just look at what Loki's mother Astrid said as soon as she saw her son for the first time. She says, "Remove this child from this world. Indeed, it has been foretold even before his birth that one day King Harold will be killed by his own son." Well, first of all, a little bit suspicious phrasing here because it doesn't specify Loki. It could be Hyrule for all we know. But also, look, when your own mom is already quoting doom prophecies about you, that's a pretty rough start to a childhood. Like, forget being grounded. You're getting banished day one. You can't even talk yet. But here's the really strange part. Despite knowing that, Harold never really turned on Loki. In previous flashbacks, we've seen real moments between them, with Harold even calling the boys his precious sons.
My precious sons.
Alright, it's not like this is the most lovey-dovey type of relationship we've seen in any anime history ever, but Harold is definitely not acting like he hates his son because there's a prophecy about those two. He didn't exile Loki straight out of hatred. But the question is, why did Harold then not fight harder against this prophecy? Well, maybe the answer lies with the first woman that he met, because there's been this quiet theme building around Harold for quite a while now. Because we can obviously see that he always used to be the standard warrior, battle-loving giant, but when he finally met Eda here, his worldview started to change completely. And honestly, it was really cool to learn that Eda was actually from another country. I mean, just seeing how giants in other parts of the world are naturally more peaceful and accepting of others was very interesting. And to see how much Harold changed after getting to know her is actually kind of crazy. I mean, it's kind of like that one slap from Eda was all that it took to start Harold on the path to pacifism and trying to improve relationships with other countries and within Elbaf. But possibly Eda's most important contribution to the entire story is that Eda seems to care more about Loki than Loki's own mother does. She encourages Hyrule to go see Loki, even though Hyrule already has all of these prejudices against his own half-brother. It really seemed like Eda wanted them to get along, even though she could have just protected her own son and stayed out of the complicated mess that was, you know, Loki and his mother and everything. You know, really looking at the panel and everything, honestly, Eda might just straight up be the real MVP of the entire Elbaf story. So please, Oda, don't screw this up and reveal that she was actually an evil, plotting villain, I guess? I don't know. And on top of that, maybe if Eda hadn't changed Harold, then maybe he would have been more like Astrida and hated Loki right away. But you know, the fact that he didn't kill Loki, that he let him live and even protected him for a while, that says a lot about the type of person that Harold then later became. But then there's, of course, the even bigger mystery here, like, where did this prophecy even come from in the first place? And is there a prophet in Elbaf? Is Astrid the prophet? I mean, she certainly seems to believe in fate and prophecies and things like that, or if not, I would be wondering if there's a special person who can see prophecies, kind of like Madame Charlie in Fishman Island, or I guess even Momo's mother Toki in Wano, she did prophecies. And if there is one prophecy about Loki and Harold, we might see other really important prophecies as well during this arc. I mean, sign me up for some serious world government downfall predictions, and if Harold started looking into those prophecies, maybe the world government noticed that, and that's why they decided to come and kill him. Well, you know that there's definitely some really deep and dark secrets that the world government probably wouldn't want anyone try and dig up. Not that we've ever seen it in the story so far. Now, let's talk a bit about Loki's actual mother, Astrid, who is, a lot. I mean, she's beautiful, high-ranking from Alcohol Village, which, I mean, yeah, is a real village in Elbaf and not just Kaido's dream retirement home. Sounds kind of cool, though. The elders basically forced Harold to remarry and marry her as part of a political arrangement, and she kind of acts exactly as the kind of royal figure that we've seen in many other world government-controlled nations. She's vain, manipulative, obsessed with image. But the worst part was that while Harold was away, Astrid gave birth to Loki, and as soon as she saw his really cool and badass serpent eyes, though, she panicked. Instead of raising him, she literally just threw him off a cliff and tried to lie to Harold that Loki was stillborn. We agree that this is just straight up evil queen behavior, right? Right? Alright. And look, I get it. The eyes are creepy and cool. I mean, that baby image is both kind of heartbreaking and haunting at the same time. I love this panel, but come on. He's your own kid. You're supposed to love him no matter what, right? Not set him up for a life of being considered an outcast, but I mean, this is One Piece and we've seen this sort of tragic childhood backstory many times. So, I mean, I guess Robin being bullied and labeled a demon child, or Sanji straight up being locked in a cage with an iron mask on by his own father. So I kind of like to imagine that we'll get a happy ending for Loki eventually. Maybe even him joining the crew? I don't know. I mean, Luffy invited him, so it's not off the table. And you know that I've been hoping for that ever since we met Loki. But okay, now that we've dug into the drama between Harold's lovers and sons and all that, you know, chaos there, let's now take a second to actually talk about Harold himself, because this guy might actually be one of the quietest tragedies in this entire arc. Because after Eda, Harold just didn't soften up emotionally, he started dreaming bigger. We see hints that he already wanted to reshape Elbaf's culture. It became less about blood and battle and more about education, peace, and just connecting with the rest of the world in a peaceful way. He began forging alliances with other nations, and not just for war. Unfortunately for him though, that probably didn't sit all too well with a certain tall, pointy-crowned person ruling the world up in Marijua. In fact, the world government clearly started making things way more difficult for Harold around this very time, and I can't really see this as a coincidence. Nothing's a coincidence. The minute a major power in One Piece starts rekindling old alliances like we see when Harold first met with the Fishmen, the world government started making his life basically hell. I mean, they didn't care that he was going around destroying things, but now suddenly that he's peaceful and trying to reach out to other, you know, ancient history affiliated nations, the government now says, you trying to be peaceful? We can't have that. We're gonna mess things up. Because we might actually be learning some juicy Luffy lore about Luffy's past by now watching Harold and Loki's story unfold as well. Yes, the video just took an interesting turn, but let me explain. Let's start with the very easy comparison. Harold and Dragon. Both are strong and mysterious characters. Both were caught up in rebellion against the world government, though in very different ways, and I have speculated that Dragon left the Marines because of a woman in his past, so if that were to be true, then both of them had a pretty radical life change because of a woman that came into their lives. And now here is where things really get juicy, because along with their fathers, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, subtle, and some of them honestly not so subtle connections between Loki and Luffy too that we already discussed. I mean, they're both sun god figures, at least Loki thinks he is. They instantly get along. They even share their connection and closeness to nature and animals. So if Loki is the stand-in for Luffy here, then we can definitely try and make a comparison between Dragon and Harold's story to speculate that Dragon had also more than one child. Yeah, I said it. You might have forgotten about it. I teased it in the intro, but I think that Luffy is not an actual only child, that Luffy has a real blood-related sibling. Now let's break down Harold's family here for a second. He had a child with Eda, the woman that he clearly actually loved, but that child, Hyrogen, was never accepted by Elbaf because, well, he wasn't of pure blood. Then Harold had Loki with Astrid, who was more in line with the traditional giant elite, but that child was then seen as cursed. So in both cases, the child was rejected by the society that they were born into, and as for the women, Eda was not accepted and Astrid ended up straight up dying. So not exactly what you would call great outcomes all around, I guess. So let's take that and try apply it to Dragon. Alright, we do know that Dragon dragon had Luffy with presumably someone, unless Luffy is Jesus, and no, that would mean that dragon got pregnant. Okay, forget that analogy immediately, please. And if we're keeping up the connections, that person would have been a lot more like Astrid, who was a woman that Dragon's family would have actually accepted. So maybe that woman was an actual marine like Garb would have liked, or maybe even a world noblewoman. That has been speculated a lot as well. But then what about that potential other relationship? Because this one would have to be with a woman and child that Dragon's family would not have accepted, which all just fits perfectly with a theory that I've personally subscribed to for quite a long time now. You might know what's coming, that Dragon had a relationship with no one else than Nico Olbia, Robin's mother. And let me just say, she fits the Eda mold perfectly. A smart woman who is very kind. She's also against the world government and would have been totally unacceptable by both Garb and the Marines and the world nobles. Now, if you've paid attention, that would make Robin and Luffy something like half siblings, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave that rabbit hole alone for now because we've gone down it in many other videos, but just know I'm a big fan of that idea. Who knows if it's true, but I think it would be pretty cool. But this idea of Dragon having children with two different women would fit the exact pattern that we're now getting introduced to with heralds. And once again, it draws the line between Loki and Luffy as parallel figures, even introducing that they were both basically cast out by their parents as children. But let's shift gears now though, pun and really focus on the politics of this chapter, because it gives us one of the clearest looks yet at what the world government, and more specifically Imo here and the Gorosei, are actually so afraid of here. And spoiler alert, it's not chaos or even destruction or even pirates running wild. What we learn here is that the world government had no problem at all with the giant warrior pirates running wild across the entire ocean, terrorizing islands, causing destruction. Totally fine apparently. No, that kind of violence is somehow manageable if it ever really got out of control. It doesn't challenge the system itself, you see. If anything, it kind of keeps people scared and divided, and hey, in Imu's books, that's what we want. Stay scared and divided. Alright, but the moment that Herald started promoting education, peace, studying the past, and alliances with other cultures, that's the moment the world government started to interfere immediately. Like, as soon as Elbaf was making progress and possibly working towards uniting civilizations, allying themselves with other, islands and stuff, the world government was like, stop. And that is something what Imu truly hates and can't tolerate, the biggest sin you can commit. And do keep in mind that we've seen the very same thing already kind of with the entire Yonko system. I mean, the world government does not really care that the top tier pirates dominate the new world, because that does keep people divided and also presents more obstacles for anyone trying to really find Laugh Tale and learning the true history. I mean, if Big Mom and Kaido are looking after the poneglyphs, then no real need to worry about it. They won't share it amongst themselves and no one can get to them. Or so they thought. What they especially don't want, of course, is people working together, learning too much, and especially reviving the ancient relationships that supported Joy Boy and maybe presumably Nika during the Void Century, or even earlier, like the Giants and the Fishmen actually working together. Because again, what we now know at this point is that that was the whole point of the Void Century, to erase the knowledge, the progress, the technology, and maybe most importantly, the alliances that the ancient kingdom actually had. If you wanted an analogy, it's almost like they are the world's most toxic landlord ever. As long as you keep your house crumbling and dirty, no problem. But the moment you try to clean things up or invite the neighborhoods over for tea, boom, Holy Night at your door. Can't go around giving the other residents weird ideas about that an apartment needs to be clean or something. Totally made up example, by the way. Now, keep in mind that we don't know the full extent of the deal that Harold made with the world government or the Holy Knights, but clearly it didn't go the way that wanted. I guess that they eventually forced Harold into a deal and then he tried to subtly break it over the years, which then led to his death or maybe assassination straight up. But I just have a feeling that everything going on in Elbaf right now is gonna come down to these mysterious prophecies. Like, it seems that they foretell everything, and I'm very sure that Oda drew some real inspiration from real-world mythology like the Nidhogg or the Jormungandr. In fact, I think I might have found the true mythology that explains everything that we see in Elbaf. So if you want to learn what the true ending of this arc might look like and all the mysteries and myths from Norse mythology that Oda's using here, you should check out that video right here. As always though, thanks so much for watching, and special thank you to all you Patreons, also all the new Patreons. We've been having a lot of fun over there. I will see you in the next one on Tuesday. There's a break next week. All right, bye.